Good afternoon. Before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 6 region and the Métis settlements and Métis Nation of Alberta, regions 2, 3, and 4. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada whose presence continues to enrich our community. On behalf of the RCMP, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. My name is Superintendent Glenn Sells. I'm the officer in charge of the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, which is part of the federal policing program in Alberta. RCMP Federal National Security is mandated to investigate criminal offenses and/or acts rising from espionage, cyber attacks, nuclear security risks, foreign-influenced activities, incidents involving the security of internationally protected persons, the unlawful release of national security-related information, terrorist financing, and terrorism, which is the focus of today's media event. On January 23rd, 2024, the normal business of Edmonton's municipal government was shattered by a violent attack on the Edmonton City Hall, which has had a profound impact on our fellow Edmontonians who were in the building that day. Fortunately, the immediate and courageous actions of City Hall security and responding emergency service personnel led to a quick resolution of the incident without any serious injuries or further damage to property. Shortly after their initial response to the incident, Edmonton Police Service partnered with INSET as the details of the attack began to materialize and appeared to fall within the national security mandate of the RCMP. Over the last several weeks, INSET began a thorough and complex investigation of the events surrounding the attack through a national security lens. This included a thorough analysis of the evidence collected, the execution of additional search warrants, further witness interviews, and analysis of electronic evidence, among other investigative steps. As a result of our investigation, the RCMP has charged 28-year-old Bezhani Sarvar of Edmonton with multiple terrorism and terrorism-related offenses. Our investigation ultimately determined that the actions of Mr. Sarvar were believed to be politically motivated and therefore reached the legal threshold required to support the terrorism charges which were ultimately laid. Among the items seized at the scene were an SKS assault-style rifle, 3 prohibited rifle magazines, approximately 150 rounds of ammunition, and 4 gasoline-filled Molotov cocktails. This certainly highlights the risk posed to the public and the amount of damage that could have been done that day. Throughout our investigation, our investigative team was in regular communication with Public Prosecution Service of Canada, or PPSC, who ultimately consented to the laying of terrorism and related offences. As Canada's national law enforcement agency, the RCMP has primary responsibility for preventing, detecting, denying, and responding to national security-related threats in Canada in partnership with intelligence and other law enforcement agencies. As such, we'd like to acknowledge the exceptional work done by the Edmonton Police Service and their assistance to the ongoing national security investigation. We also feel that the strong partnership between law enforcement and both federal and provincial Crown prosecutors sends a strong message that violent incidents such as this, which impact both public safety and confidence, will be diligently and thoroughly investigated and prosecuted via all legal tools at our disposal. Again, as I said, I would like to commend the unwavering support and professionalism of the Edmonton Police Service, whose cooperation was pivotal to the successful outcome of this investigation. And now, I would like to welcome Inspector Michelle Greening from the Edmonton Police Service Investigative Services Branch to the podium to share a few words. Michelle?
Good afternoon. As mentioned, I'm Inspector Michelle Greening with the Edmonton Police Service Investigative Response Branch. On behalf of the APS, I would like to extend our sincerest thanks to the RCMP's Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, for their work and collaboration. From the very beginning, INSET was directly engaged with our team, which ensured timely investigative considerations regarding extremism. Though our investigations were separate, they progressed in parallel, with continual communication and briefings to ensure we both had the information and evidence required. INSET's charges, in conjunction with the work already done by the EPS, sends a clear message that these actions are not acceptable forms of expression in our community and are in fact acts of terrorism. This brings an increased degree of accountability for the accused actions, but does not make up for the impact to our community or those present at City Hall that day and their families. Fortunately, the event did not result in physical injury or death, but that does not lessen the shock and fear some are still dealing with. This was an attack on a publicly accessible government building, a place where everyone should feel safe and secure. I would like to acknowledge all those on scene that day initially responding to the shooting, securing the building, and keeping its occupants safe. This includes EPS members, our RCMP and EMS partners, and City Hall staff and securities whose quick actions prevented potential tragedy. It is also important to acknowledge the EPS investigative team and support units whose good work began immediately and into the days following the event, providing evidence to INSET for these terrorism offences. Once again, thank you to the RCMP for their commitment and partnership throughout this investigation. These charges are the product of excellent investigative work and collaboration from all involved. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Donc, avant de commencer, premièrement, nous souhaitons profiter de l'occasion pour souligner que nous nous trouvons sur les territoires traditionnels des peuples autochtones de la région du traité numéro 6 et des établissements métis et de la nation métis de l'Alberta, régions 2, 3 et 4. Nous respectons l'histoire, les langues et les cultures des Premières Nations, des Métis, des Inuits et de tous les premiers peuples du Canada, dont la présence continue d'enrichir nos collectivités. Au nom de la GRC, j'aimerais vous remercier de vous être joints à nous aujourd'hui. Je suis le surintendant Chan Daktari Dara et je vous présente en français les mots du surintendant Glenn Sells, officier responsable de l'équipe intégrée de la sécurité nationale, qui fait partie du programme de la police fédérale en Alberta. La police fédérale de la GRC, spécifiquement la sécurité nationale, a pour mandat d'enquêter les infractions criminelles, les actes liés à l'espionnage, aux cyberattaques, aux risques pour la sécurité nucléaire, aux activités étrangères, aux incidents concernant la sécurité d'une personne protégée internationalement et à la divulgation illégale d'informations relatives à la sécurité nationale, au financement du terrorisme et au terrorisme lui-même, qui fait l'objet de l'événement médiatique aujourd'hui. Le 23 janvier 2024, les activités normales du gouvernement municipal d'Edmonton ont été fracassées par une attaque violente contre l'hôtel de ville d'Edmonton, ce qui a eu un impact profond sur nos concitoyens d'Edmonton, surtout ceux qui se trouvaient à la mairie ce jour-là. Heureusement, les actions immédiates et courageuses de la sécurité de l'hôtel de ville et des services d'urgence ont permis une résolution rapide de l'incident sans qu'il n'y ait eu de blessés graves ou de dégâts matériels supplémentaires. Peu après leur intervention initiale, les détails de l'attaque ont commencé à se matérialiser et semblaient relever du mandat de la GRC en matière de la sécurité nationale. C'est à ce moment que le service de police d'Edmonton sont entrés en partenariat avec l'équipe intégrée de la sécurité nationale de la GRC. Au cours des dernières semaines, l'équipe intégrée de la sécurité nationale a entamé une enquête approfondie et complexe sur les événements entourant l'attentat sous l'angle de la sécurité nationale. Ceci inclut, parmi d'autres moyens d'enquête, une analyse approfondie des premiers éléments de preuve recueillis, l'exécution de mandats de perquisition supplémentaires, des entrevues de témoins et l'analyse de preuves électroniques. Suite à notre enquête, la GRC a inculpé M. Bezhani Sarvar, 28 ans, d'Edmonton, pour de multiples infractions liées au terrorisme. Notre enquête a ultimement permis de déterminer que les actions de l'accusé étaient considérées comme étant politiquement motivées, puisqu'il espérait favoriser un objectif politique par la violence et, par conséquent, atteignant le seuil juridique requis pour justifier les infractions de terrorisme qui ont été ultimement portées contre M. Sarvar. Les objets saisis sur la scène incluent un fusil d'assaut de type SKS, obtenu légalement avec un permis de possession et d'acquisition, 3 chargeurs de fusil interdits, environ 150 munitions, ainsi que 4 cocktails Molotov remplis d'essence. Ces faits mettent en évidence le risque pour le public et l'ampleur des dégâts qui auraient pu être causés. Tout au long de l'enquête, notre équipe d'enquêteurs a été en contact régulier avec les services des poursuites pénales du Canada, qui a ultimement consenti à porter des accusations de terrorisme et d'infractions connexes. En tant que l'Organisme national d'application de la loi du Canada, la GRC a la responsabilité principale de prévenir, détecter et repousser et répondre aux menaces criminelles liées à la sécurité nationale au Canada, en partenariat avec les services de renseignement et autres organismes d'application de la loi. À cet effet, nous tenons à reconnaître le travail exceptionnel effectué par le service de police d'Edmonton et son aide continue dans le cadre de cette enquête de sécurité nationale. Nous croyons également que le partenariat robuste entre les forces de l'ordre et les procureurs de la Couronne fédéraux et provinciaux envoie un message important. Les incidents violents tels que celui-ci, qui ont un impact sur la sécurité et la confiance du public, feront l'objet d'enquêtes et de poursuites appliquées et approfondies, utilisant tous les outils juridiques à notre disposition. Encore une fois, je tiens à saluer le soutien inébranlable et le professionnalisme du service de police d'Edmonton, dont la coopération a été essentielle à la réussite de notre enquête. Merci beaucoup.
So what I can tell you is the videos you're referring to form part of our investigation. I can't really comment on the evidentiary value or of that as the investigation unfolded, the evidentiary value of other pieces of our file. But ultimately, yeah, from our perspective, we are aware of it, and it did form part of our investigation.
Yeah, I guess my follow-up is, he did appear in court today. Are you able to provide any updates on that?
Not at this time. I haven't been updated. He did appear this morning, and I haven't been provided a fulsome update of what transpired there.
Hi, Superintendent. You mentioned that this was potentially political motivated. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, so what I can tell you is our investigation showed that his actions, including the use of violence, led us to believe that this was a politically motivated crime, and ultimately led to the supporting terrorism offenses here. I can't get into the specific details of the evidence that supported that, but we do believe it's a politically motivated crime.
What about the ideology? Can you speak more to which sort of it?
And the ideology we believe in this case was political.
But you can't say it. Okay.
Yes.
My second question. Now that you've confirmed the gun, we had several experts at the time who watched that security video and said that the gun jammed. Can you confirm that?
I can't comment on that piece at this time, other than the assault rifle or assault style rifle was seized at the scene. I can't get into the details of that weapon at this time.
And you had far more ammo.
We'll get back to you. I did miss an individual looking there.
No worries. Any CTV news. Now I understand the suspect's being held in Calgary. Why is that?
He was transported to the Calgary Remand Center. I'm not actually certain why he's being held there, but that's where he's currently housed.
And then, do you guys have any background information on the suspect, who he was, and any sort of personal information about this suspect?
Yeah, I won't get into those details at this media event for a number of privacy-related issues and investigative-related issues.
Hi, Cindy Tran with the Edmonton Journal. So there were videos posted online, manifesto videos titled Rise Up. It appears to be the same man. Are you able to confirm if it was the same man in this? Who is the suspect that was in those YouTube videos?
Okay, again, I won't be able to speak to ongoing pieces of evidence as it relates to our investigation.
Can you, I know you don't want to speak to specifically what the ideology or the politics are, but have you looked into any kind of affiliation or affinity with a specific group or other terrorist groups?
So at this point, we believe he acted alone, but I won't be able to speak to any more in relation to ideology or other motivation.
And has there been any inquiries or assessment related to mental health?
Again, at this point, it would be premature for me to have that discussion.
No questions?
No.
Swinging back to the left. Cindy?
I guess, terrorism charges are, huge. How often are they laid in Canada?
Terrorism charges are actually laid relatively infrequently. And again, in this case, the criteria required to actually lay them existed, and therefore we did.
Clarify the charges. There are the 2 terrorism-related ones, and then we understand that maybe the provincial ones have been dropped and some other ones added. Can you clarify exactly what charges he's facing?
Yeah, so there are 2 terrorism-related offenses that were laid, and then the original 6 charges that were laid by Edmonton Police Service have now been stayed, and those charges have now been relayed through a terrorism lens, as well as 3 additional charges for a total of 9.
A total of 9.
9 other provincial-related charges that have a terrorism nexus, plus the 2 terrorism-related offenses. So 11 total, right?
11 total.
Yeah.
Sorry, just following up on the earlier question, can you talk about what that threshold is to lay these terrorism charges just for clarification?
Again, it's relatively complex. However, and at the end of the day, ultimately, Public Prosecution Service Canada makes the determination whether or not, with Attorney General consent, whether or not we'll lay them. In this case, all the elements required did exist in this case to lay those charges.
Anyone else on the right? And just a reminder to the inspector of the DPS is still available for any questions. So, any last couple of questions? Brianna?
Sorry. A couple of years ago, we saw the attack downtown with the U-Haul at Commonwealth. We've had a lot of viewers asking why terrorism charges weren't laid in that case. I know it's a completely separate case, but can you maybe speak to why they're not laid in necessarily every
Yeah, unfortunately, it'd be unfair. I don't know all the specific details of that investigation. It'd be unfair for me to comment as to why they weren't in that case. But in this case, the grounds existed and terrorism charges were laid.
It's fair to say that it takes a lot to lay these charges, a high evidentiary.
Yeah, the evidentiary threshold is high to lay terrorism charges, yes.
I'm sorry, just one more. I know that a search warrant was performed on his property. Can you speak to anything that may have been found there? Did that lay any charges?
Yeah, at this point, I won't be able to speak to, that it speaks to the evidence that we procured during the investigation. I won't be able to speak to that at this point. Ultimately, that's the role of the Crown from this point moving forward.
But was anything found there, and I know you can't speak to specifics, but was anything found there that also led to the charges aside from what was found on his person?
Yeah, again, that constitutes the evidence that ultimately is behind the charges. So.
One more question from anyone else?
Yeah, Sean, about 7 just a question. Is there any indication that he intended harm that day? And if so, did we get incredibly lucky that day?
So I can't speak to what he intended to do, but I would suggest that we were very lucky that people weren't injured and that more damage didn't occur. Given the weapons that were involved and how it unfolded, I think we were very lucky.